And this question has been discussed by many philosophers in the West, and of course it's explained in detail and perfect clarity in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The imperfect philosophers, from Plato to Hobbes to Emerson, Marx, they attempted to conceptualize and actualize the perfect society. They all failed. But the perfect society was already demonstrated in ancient times by Lord Ramachandra in Ayodhya, and his kingdom included the entire earth. And similarly, Maharaj Yudhisthira, his kingdom also was the entire earth. And in both of these societies, everyone lived peacefully. They were happy, they were healthy, and prosperous during the reign of these pious kings, Lord Rama being the incarnation of the Supreme Personality Godhead, and Yudhisthira being a pure devotee of the Lord. So we're going to explain the principles and techniques that these kings practiced in order to bring about a perfect society in which people are happy, healthy, prosperous, and spiritually advancing toward the ultimate goal of life, which is to go back to Godhead. Yeah. Yeah.
So, as the scripture says that in the Kali Yuga, as time passes, our life will be degrading over a period of time.
Yeah.
More and more we pass into like Kali Yuga, our life will become more and more degraded over a
Right.
period of time. So, do you think that we are trying to be going against, trying to do against the flow, which is a natural process that we are going to be degraded, people are going to be degraded, and this is a natural behavior of the people. It doesn't matter if that's not in their control. It's because of this yuga, if people are trying to be like behave like that. This is the natural process of people are getting transformed into a degraded life. So are we trying to be like going against the flow? We are in Kali Yuga but trying to behave like a Satya Yuga people. So it is kind of do you think that we are trying to be like going against the flow of this?
You're forgetting one thing. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna himself, appeared 500 years ago. And it's predicted that there is a 10,000-year window in which the people of Kali Yuga can attain perfection and go back to Godhead. After that 10,000-year window is finished, then it's going to be almost impossible. And there'll just be continual degradation. This is the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's why he brought the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And then we're going to explain that right now. Yeah. Otherwise, what you said is correct. However, by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, you can be like a little fish. A little fish goes against the current of the river and goes up the river. You ever hear the salmon runs? The salmon, are, like where a new farm is, there's a salmon hatchery there. So they breed baby salmons, they're like this, and they let them loose, hundreds and thousands of them, into the stream behind us, and then they go down to the Puget Sound, and they go out into the ocean. And I think it's 3 years later, they come back again. Right? So going out, they're going with the flow. Coming back, they have to come against it. And they come back exactly to the same hatchery. And they lay their eggs and they die. If you're there at that time, you can just pick them right out of, they're this big, the salmon. You can pick them up right out of the stream. You know, they turn pink and red and then they die. You see. But to come back, they have to go against the current. So they can do that. Also, little fish, when there's a tsunami or when there's highly turbulent waves in the ocean, they're not affected by it, hardly. They have some mystical power. See. So it is possible to go against the flow if you have the training, and Lord Chaitanya came to give us that training. Basically, he said it's actually not difficult. You simply chant Hare Krishna sincerely, and all good things will happen. What happens when we chant Hare Krishna? Krishna takes a personal interest in us. He has what we could call an impersonal interest in all living entities, because he's supplying all living entities food and maintaining them, maintaining the conditions of nature. But for the devotee, he takes a special interest, and you attract that special interest of Krishna by chanting and following the regulative principles. That answer your question? Yeah, it's by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. We have a 10,000-year window. Already 500 some years are done. So you have another 9,500 years possibility to attain the perfect life here and go back to Godhead. So it's said that every living entity has a certain period of life in a what we call a perishable body, a body that's subject to 6 stages. There's birth, there's growth, there's staying or existence, there's a period of existence, there's dwindling, they give off byproducts, like children, right? Then there's dwindling, they get old and sick, and then they die. So 6 stages in the perishable body. But the soul is eternal, so it witnesses these 6 stages. And during life, during our existence in the material body, the perishable material body, we also experience 3 types of misery: adhyatmika, adhibhotika, adhidaivika. Misery is due to this body, misery is due to other bodies, misery is due to natural catastrophes of nature. Now, sometimes we experience the 1, 2, or all 3 of those miseries, but there's always some misery. There's always some misery. At least one of these things are disturbing us. We can't escape them. And we're disturbed by them, and they even cause fear. Now, how did we get into this situation? We get into this situation of we have an eternal soul because we're part and parcel of Krishna, but our soul gets entrapped in a cycle of birth and death, and we're caught in a temporary body, a perishable body. The real cause of it is forgetfulness of Krishna. And the solution to how to have a perfect life is to train the mind to be always Krishna conscious. Okay. So Lord Chaitanya, he came to establish the Hare Krishna movement or Krishna consciousness in the Kali Yuga. Therefore he's called Kali Yuga Avatara. He's the avatar for this age. Why? Because he's bringing the recommended way how to attain liberation from all the miseries and illusions that keep us in this material world suffering. So the instruction of Lord Chaitanya and the instruction of Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita are exactly the same. In fact, what's Krishna's final words? Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyajimam namaskuru mam evaisasi satyam te pratijane priyosime. Hey Arjuna, always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, offer all your homage and respect to me, If you do this, I promise you, you will definitely come back to me. Sarvadharmam parityaja mamikam saranam brajaham tvam sarvapapepyo mokshishyami ma suchaha. Arjuna, just surrender unto me. And if you do this, I promise you, I'll free you from all your previous karma. Therefore, you have nothing to fear, hesitate, or doubt. So these are the ultimate instructions of Krishna at the end of Bhagavad Gita. He also says, Idam te natapaskaya nabhaktaya kadachana nachatu susave vachyam nachamam yo vyasuyati. This knowledge that Krishna is giving us in Bhagavad Gita, he calls it confidential knowledge, is never to be explained or cannot be understood, let's say, by those who are not austere, not devoted, and not engaged in devotional service, nor to one who is envious of him. So if we don't accept simple austerity, what's the simple austerity? Following the 4 regulative principles and chanting regularly 16 good rounds of Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And we should be engaged in the 7 types of devotional service, especially hearing and repeating or chanting, Shravanam Kirtanam, and then that helps us smaranam, remember the Lord. Because the reason we're suffering is because we forgot the Lord. And then we should be engaged in one or multiple or all of the 7 types of devotional service. Shravan Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Atma Nivedanam. So it's not 7, it's 9 types of devotional service. Right? And obviously we shouldn't be envious of Krishna. We shouldn't want to get rid of a Krishna and become Krishna ourselves, right? Or try to become Krishna ourselves, or imitate Krishna artificially. And then, Ya idam paramam guyam ad bhakti swabidasyati bhaktim mai param kritva mam evaisasya samsaya nachatasman manusyesu kaschit me priyakritama bhavita nachame tasmat anya priyataro bhuvi. So these 2 verses are Krishna's direct instruction to us, what we should do. And he says, for one who explains this Bhagavad Gita, which he calls the supreme secret, paramam, ya idam paramam guyam, it says paramam guyam, which means the supreme secret knowledge. To the devotees, pure devotional service is guaranteed, and at the end he will come back to me. Nachatasman manusyasya kaschid me priya kritama bhavita nachame tasmat anya priyataro bhuvi. There's no servant in this world more dear to me than the devotee, sincere devotee, who is preaching all the time to others, nor will there ever be one more dear. So this is the Lord's ultimate instructions, Bhagavad Gita 65, 66, 67, 68, and 69. And then he says, Adyesta cha ya imam dharmam sambadam avyayo jnana yagena tena aham ista sham itime mati. And Krishna says, whoever studies this conversation, this sacred conversation of ours, meaning Krishna and Arjuna, worships me by his intelligence. And then, Shadavam anasuyas cha shinu yad apino nara sopi mukta subal lokan prapnat punya karmanam. And one who listens with faith and without envy becomes free from sinful reactions and attains to the auspicious planets where the pious dwell. So, by doing what? Shadavan anasuyas tu. Shadavan means with great faith, anasuyas, without envy, shinuyat, listening, hearing me, such a person will become liberated. So the class should be basically repeating what Krishna says. Right? We don't have to make anything up. If we repeat what Krishna says, then we're hearing Krishna. Just like if someone sends you a money order, well, they don't come and hand it to you, right? They're sending it through the mail service. And the mail service has hired mail deliverers. So the delivery man comes and hands you the money. So it's not, you don't see the person who sent it, but it's sent through other agents. And if those persons are honest, you actually get the full amount of money. In the same way, if we simply repeat Krishna's message, then a third person receives it directly from Krishna. Whether we're giving it or Krishna is directly speaking, the third person gets Krishna's message. So that should be our position. And you can only attain that position as a bona fide messenger of Krishna if Shraddhavan Anasuyascha Shinuyad Api Yonara. If we listen with faith and without envy, then we become free of all sinful reactions. And then we can become a representative of Krishna. We can become Krishna's peon, his delivery man. And we deliver the money, the total amount, the real instruction of Bhagavad Gita without altering it to a sincere person. But we have to become free from all sinful reactions, but that's not that difficult if we take up this chanting and humble service under the tutelage or the direction of bona fide devotees. Okay, so therefore, during this certain period of life that we all have, even though we're troubled by the three types of miseries, we can get relief from this by this hearing and chanting and remembering. What is the original cause of our suffering? Forgetfulness of Krishna. What happens when we engage in regular hearing and chanting? We remember Krishna. So the real cause of miseries is forgetfulness of our eternal relationship with Krishna. Very similar to a son or a daughter who rejects his or her parents and leaves their protection and goes out into the world. And eventually, most kids that do that, they end up very, very lonely and full of hardship and suffering. So there's a history of one boy who left his father. The father had two sons. One son stayed with the father. The other boy rejected the father and left. And he traveled around the world. He was basically homeless. Eventually, he was suffering terribly, and he had no money. So he went and begged one astrologer, please tell me what's going to happen to me in life. Just like Ananda Mela, we're going to have an astrologer. So people come and they want to know what's going to happen to me. You know? It's like last week on our Sankirtan party, I met one Indian student, and he said that he was looking for an astrologer. I said, why? He said, I want to know when I'm going to get married. I said, well, I'm not an astrologer. I said, but I can read your palm if you want. He said, you can do that? I said, yes. So he showed me his palm, and I looked at it. I said, there are two lines. Therefore, two women are going to be prominent in your life. If you're lucky, it'll be your mother and your wife. He said, how can you tell that? I said, it's in your palm. He said, When am I going to get married? I said, wait a minute. You shouldn't be concerned about when. You should be concerned about how to prepare yourself and what you should be looking for. He said, well, okay, what should I be looking for? I said, first you have to prepare yourself before you start looking. He said, okay, what should I do? I said, yeah, you should learn to control your mind and your senses. He said, well, how did I do that? I said, repeat after me. Hare Krishna. Wait a minute, he said. What is it? I thought you were going to tell me how I do it. This is the way to do it, my friend. So I explained to him that he had to gain control of his mind and senses by focusing them on Krishna. He said, okay, I know this Krishna, I know all this stuff. I'm born in India. I said, no, you don't know anything. I said, no, you have to learn properly. Just like you're a college student here. Why'd you come here? If you know everything, why are you coming to school? He said, well, I don't know everything. I said, yeah, and you don't know anything about Krishna, so just listen. So he listened. He said, okay, now when am I going to get married? I said, now you have to know what to look for. But you still haven't controlled your mind and senses, but let's say you do by practicing Krishna consciousness. Now what you're looking for, see, if you are what you want, then you'll find it. But if you are out of control, you're not going to find a good woman. You will not attract a good woman. I said, you have to have the scent of a saint. He said, what does that mean? I said, you have to have the scent of a saint. Just like animals, when they get into heat, they can scent, they can smell another animal in heat. And then they can approach that. They approach it with their smell. I said, well, should I get a perfume? I said, no, don't be foolish. You don't get any perfume. I said, well, I can buy, Yves Saint Laurent. It's an expensive. I said, don't talk nonsense. I said, Yves Saint Laurent, all you'll do is attract mosquitoes. What? I said, yeah. I mean, there's two types of perfumes. One perfume attracts mosquitoes and chases away pretty girls, and another type of perfume attracts pretty girls and attracts mosquitoes and chases away pretty girls, and another one attracts pretty girls and chases away mosquitoes. He said, I want the second one. What's the name of the brand? I said, it's called Hare Krishna. I said, you have to develop the qualities of a genuine good person. Self-control, tolerance, compassion, and so forth. Then you will attract a qualified female. If you don't have those qualities, then and the only way you can develop those qualities is by chanting Hare Krishna and practicing Krishna consciousness. 4 don'ts and 4 do's. He said, this is getting a little complicated. I said, look, what course are you taking? Oh, I'm studying computer technology. I said, is it a little complicated? He said, yeah, it's complicated. I said, okay, so what's your problem? You want to do something important in life, it's going to be complicated. But this is simple, actually. It's much less complicated than what you're doing in school. You just simply chant Hare Krishna and follow the regulative principles. He said, your regulative principles, he said, that's like impossible for me. I said, nothing is impossible. I said, impossible is only a word in the fool's dictionary. What seems impossible becomes possible if you decide to surrender unto Krishna. He said, okay. He said, well, how do I surrender unto Krishna? I said, you begin by surrendering to Krishna's representative, the teacher. Just like you have surrendered to your teachers in school. There you go, you have to sit there quietly, you have to listen to them, you have to take notes, you have to pass the test. So it's the same thing. You have to be quiet. You don't learn by talking, you learn by listening. You have to hone your listening skills. And listen to what I'm saying. What I'm saying, I'm simply repeating Krishna's words. So, by looking at his palm, I could see that there were going to be 2 significant women. And one is his mother. I said, describe your mother to me. So, she's a very nice lady. She's very kind. Okay. So the woman you want to marry should be like your mother. Very kind, very gentle. and very ready to cooperate with you. So if you have the help of a good wife, then you'll be able to achieve all your goals in life, especially going back to Godhead, if she's a genuinely good woman. So therefore I said, you have to be a genuinely good man before you meet the woman you're going to marry, because otherwise, if you're not genuinely good, you'll attract some low-class woman, and there's plenty of them in America, and the rest of your life will be horrible. But if you're a genuinely good person, then you'll attract a good woman, and you'll know how to treat her nicely. I said, women just simply want to have a genuine friend, a gentle person, someone who is respectful, always treats them with kindness and gentleness. And I said, then everything will work out. So when can I talk to you again? I said, first of all, understand what we said now. Right? And you just keep coming back here and be engaged in Krishna's service. So this happened, on the street, right? Here's a person who was looking for an astrologer. I'm not an astrologer, but I do read palms. Prabhupada was once asked to read a palm, and he refused. I don't do that. And the person kept insisting. He said, no, you are a guru. All the gurus do this. He said, no, I don't do it. And he kept insisting. He said, okay, let me see your palm. So he looked at him, Prabhupada, went like this. And he said, very bad. The man said, what does it say? He says, all bad. So what is it? There's only birth, death, old age, and disease. So, yeah, well, we don't want to. I mean, if you're an astrologer and you give a palm reader and you give bad news, they don't want to give you money, right? So they always say, you're going on a long trip. You're going to meet someone. It's going to be very profitable, like that. People, oh, thank you very much, Guru Dev. They give $100. If he says it's all bad, it's birth, death, old age, I'm not going to pay you a cent, Yeah. Okay, so Krishna says that basically the Bhagavad Gita is the last word of the truth that everyone, and the last word is that everyone should surrender to the Lord. So what is the cause of our suffering is that we have left the Lord voluntarily. We got attracted by the material world, and we think, oh, if I go to the material world, I can be Krishna. I can control things myself. I'll start a company and control people and control money, and my bank account will increase, and the more it increases, the more I'll be controller and enjoyer. So this false concept of proprietorship is what is ruining people's lives. So this is the ultimate illusion. And what is it? It's the thought that I am the proprietor and everything is mine. When in fact, the truth is nothing belongs to us. Even this body doesn't belong to us. And we're not at all proprietors. We're simply renters or poachers. We're poaching on the proprietorship of someone else. Therefore, our real situation is that everything belongs to Krishna, including me. I'm part and parcel of Krishna. My body is made of Krishna's material energies. So this is the proper way of understanding our situation. And it takes some time to accept it, because the idea that I am the proprietor, I am the controller, I am the enjoyer is so infectious that it corrupts every thought process in our mind. And the central focus of all spiritual practice, beginning from materialistic yoga right up to pure Krishna consciousness, is the mind. Because it's relatively easy to control the body. I could tie someone up very tightly and their body, they're controlled, right? But it's almost impossible to tie up the mind. No matter how strongly you try, it still keeps going here and there. So Therefore, the yoga practice is for controlling the mind. And the first step is to understand, I have left Krishna voluntarily. And then the second step is to understand, because I did this, all suffering has fallen on my life and is part of my life. Birth, death, old age, and disease. The 6 stages of the body. You take birth, you grow, you stay, you give off byproducts, you dwindle, you die. No one can escape these 6 stages of the body. And during that time, there's miseries of this body, there's miseries caused by other bodies, there's miseries caused by natural, cataclysmic events of nature that are under the control of the devatas. So I'm always, fearful of something going wrong, and I'm always in trouble. Therefore, less intelligent persons want to find material ways to make a solution to this suffering. So they have aspirin, they have Advil, they have Oxycontin, you have all these different material drugs, marijuana and so forth. And then they have other techniques. You surround yourself with gadgets, this app, that app, another app, try and make your life easier. And then you go a little higher, you have yoga. Yoga is an attempt, a materialistic attempt to become free of misery. So on the lowest level, yoga is for becoming healthy, to have more sense gratification. A little higher level, yoga is to help control the mind. And ultimately, yoga is not going to actually succeed, because unless one comes to bhakti yoga. In other words, any type of yoga, it could be karma yoga, it could be jnana yoga, it could be astanga yoga, and all their subcategories of yoga. There's Raja Yoga, there's Kriya Yoga, there's Hatha Yoga, and so forth. Those are subcategories of those 3 main titles: Karma, Jnana, and Astanga. Unless one is involved in Bhakti Yoga as part of those other practices, they'll never achieve success, never achieve the perfect life. Even if they merge into the Brahman, they will fall down eventually. Without taking shelter of Krishna's lotus feet, one will fall down, even if they've attained the perfection of merging into the Brahman effulgence. So less intelligent men, the so-called scholars, philosophers, scientists, they misunderstand what Krishna said. Krishna is saying, surrender unto me. And they say, no, you don't have to surrender unto Krishna. You just surrender to our misguided instructions. We'll attain perfection by material science, logic, and research, and so forth. By material means, we'll build rockets, we'll build airplanes, we'll build hospitals, and we will alleviate the suffering, and we will eventually become immortal. But that's a bunch of nonsense. Actually, through their science, they've found ways to kill people in larger numbers and very quickly, rather than prolong their life. One atomic bomb killed 100,000 people. Before they would throw bombs, they would kill 5, 10 people. Now they can throw one bomb and kill 100,000 or 200,000 people. Right? So, actually, there's a prediction with 10 modern, high-powered atomic bombs, you could destroy the Earth. That's what they're saying. It's not true, because because mankind did not create the earth, it's impossible for man to destroy what they have not created. But mankind can destroy what they created, the cities, the tanks, the bridges, the tunnels, the skyscrapers. Those things can all be destroyed, but not the earth itself. So these so-called scholars, they have misunderstood Krishna, and they've misguided the general mass of people to reject Krishna. And at the end of the 9th chapter, Krishna says specifically that one should remember him, become his devotee, and then surely he will come back to him. But the so-called scholars and demons, they misguide the mass of people and direct them not to surrender to the Lord, but rather to the impersonal Brahman, the non-manifest, eternal, unborn truth. So these Mayavadi philosophers, they don't accept that the last word in the matter of understanding the absolute truth is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And due to their poor funded knowledge, they can't go beyond the Brahman effulgence. And therefore, they're violating Shastra, especially the Upanishads. Just like Isha Upanishad says, Hiranmayana patrena satyasya tam mukam tattvam pusam apavrino satyadharmaya dristaye. So it says, "O my Lord, please remove the brilliant effulgence that is covering you." So this is 15th mantra. O Lord, O sustainer of all that lives, your real face is covered by your dazzling effulgence. Kindly remove that covering and exhibit yourself to your pure devotee. And then it says that Pusaneka seyamasriya prajapatya vyuharasmin samahatejo yatte rupam kalyanatamam tate pasyami yosavaso purushaham sohamasmi. O my Lord, O primeval philosopher, maintainer of the universe, O regulating principle, destination of the pure devotees, well-wisher of the progenitors of mankind, please remove the effulgence of your transcendental rays so that I can see your form of bliss. You are the eternal Supreme Personality of Godhead, like unto the sun, as am I. So here we have 2 verses, 15 and 16 of the Isha Upanishad. And the devotee, the pure devotee, is asking the Lord to remove this dazzling effulgence called the Brahma Jyoti so that he can see his beautiful form of Sham Sundar and his beautiful face. So the Upanishads confirm that one has to penetrate the dazzling effulgence of Brahman, and then one can see the real face of the personality of Godhead. And the Mayavadi philosophers are saying there's nothing beyond Brahman that's dazzling effulgence. So they're lying, blatantly lying, contradicting the Upanishads, which are the highest authority in Vedic knowledge. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya came and he's teaching to worship Krishna directly. This little boy in Vrindavan, the son of Maharaj Nanda and Yasodamai, and he's saying that Vrindavan is as good as Lord Krishna himself. Lord Krishna is the absolute truth. There's no difference between his name, quality, form, pastimes, entourage, paraphernalia. So Lord Chaitanya recommends the mode of worship of the gopis as the highest form of worship of the Lord. The gopis simply love Krishna without any motive for material gain or spiritual gain. He also recommended Srimad Bhagavatam as the spotless Purana and of transcendental knowledge and the most beneficial scripture for humanity. So, because by reading Bhagavatam and beginning with Bhagavad Gita and then going on to Bhagavatam, one can develop unalloyed love for Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, so this Antakali Chamameva Smaran Mukva Kalevram, this constant thinking of the Lord right up to the point of death, is highly recommended by Lord Chaitanya. And if we practice Krishna consciousness in our lifetime, then it's possible that at the moment of death, yaprayati samad bhavam yati ati nasti atra samsayaha, that there's no doubt, therefore, that at the point of death we'll be able to remember the Lord. But this requires constant practice throughout life. And Prabhupada says, therefore one should constantly, incessantly chant the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Lord Chaitanya has advised that one be as tolerant as a tree. Tararapi Saistana. There may be so many impediments for a person who is chanting Hare Krishna. Nonetheless, tolerating all these impediments, one should continue to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So that at the end of one's life, one can have the full benefit of Krishna consciousness. So this is called Prema Pumartha Mahan, that the highest goal of life is achieving pure love for the Lord. And one can rather easily do it by this chanting of the holy name. And therefore, the holy name is non-different than the Lord. Binat Vam Namanamine, from the Padma Purana says that. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya's philosophy is Achintya Beda Abeda Tattva, that the absolute truth, Lord Krishna, is simultaneously one and inconceivably different. And that is called Achintya Beda Beda Tattva, simultaneously one and different. So simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord, which is non-different than the Lord, it's the sound vibration of the Lord. The Lord being the absolute Supreme Personality of Godhead, the absolute whole. There's no difference between His name and His transcendental form. Therefore, this chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, one can directly associate with the Supreme Lord Krishna by the sound vibration. And there are three stages of chanting Hare Krishna. One is the offensive stage, one is the clearing stage, and one is the transcendental stage. So the offensive stage, one chants Hare Krishna for material, to satisfy material desires. And their mind is infected with millions of desires they want satisfied. In the clearing stage, one may still have material desires, but one realizes this is wrong. And every time they begin to think in a certain way for material desires, they stop themselves by chanting louder or by praying to Guru and Krishna. And then in the transcendental stage, they've gone beyond any adulteration of material desires, and they're simply desiring to please Krishna. They begin to taste transcendental happiness. Anandamaya Vyasat. So when one reaches the stage of loving Krishna, then that's the highest stage of perfection for the human being. So now we're talking about the perfect society. First we have to talk about how each member of society can become perfect, so that all these people who become perfect begin to live in the perfect society where 24 hours a day one can remember Krishna, because there's activity 24 hours a day. Just like today, as soon as the class is over, we're going to go to Auburn and inaugurate a new temple. And there'll be a full program there. And then we're going to come back here and we have our Sunday feast. Again, a full program. Chanting, dancing, Tulsi Puja, Guru Puja, class, arti, bhajans, and so forth. And then prasadam. So 2 full programs, 3 full programs. Morning program, Auburn program, and Samamish program. This is Krishna consciousness. You see. All day you're with Krishna. And devotees, and chanting, and dancing, hearing, remembering, serving, and prasadam, like that. So one can have either polluted consciousness or clear consciousness. If the mind is fixed on Krishna, his name, his qualities, his form, his pastimes, his entourage, his paraphernalia, then the whole gamut of activities, the whole spectrum of activities, subtle and gross, is changed to favorable. Then, this is the way Bhagavad Gita is recommending: to fix the mind on Krishna, to talk of his transcendental activities, to cleanse the temple of the Lord, to walk to the temple of the Lord, to see the beautiful transcendental form of the Lord nicely decorated, to hear his transcendental glories, to taste foodstuffs offered to the Lord, to smell the flowers and tulsi leaves offered to the Lord, to associate with the Lord's devotees, to engage oneself in the activities of the interests of the Lord, and to become angry also at those who are envious of the devotees. No one can stop the activities of the mind or the senses, but one can purify such activities by changing the goal. What's the goal? It's recommended in Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, 39th verse, which is a very important verse, and it says basically, Ese te bihita sankhye buddhir yoga trimam shrinu buddhyo yukta yaya partha karma bandham prahasyasi. Krishna tells Arjuna, thus far I have described this knowledge to you through analytical study. Now listen as I explain it in terms of working without fruitive results. O son of Partha, when you act in such knowledge, you can free yourself from the bondage of works. This is very important. This knowledge given to us by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, he begins with differentiating between the body and soul. And now, he's going to go further. He's going to talk about practical work without desire for fruitive results. Most people are working, just like you might work in a company, right? And if the boss says, you're going to work, but I'm not going to pay you 1 penny, would you work there? You say, I'm not going to give you any stock options. I'm not going to give you lunch, free lunch. Huh?
Depends if the work is something that I want to do without
Well, what if he said, you just volunteered yourself to clean the toilets for the next 2 years? Okay, so no way, Jose. Yeah. So you wouldn't do it, right? But Krishna consciousness, pure Krishna consciousness, is working without pay. It's just offering your service and just depending completely on Krishna. Just like right now is a season where the birds have laid their eggs and the little birdies have hatched, and you can hear chip, 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 chip. They're going like that. We have these little bird houses at the farm that we built. So the birds naturally make their nest in those bird houses, and they raise their kids. Of course, even though we put the bird houses really high up on a barn, it's still dangerous because the snakes will go up. I've seen this. They go straight up. They defy gravity. They go straight up, right into the hole. It's a small hole to get into the birdhouse. These are small birds, right? They go in, they eat the little birdies, and they come out again when the mother's away. It's frightening. And you see nature. And then we also have what's called a weasel, W-E-A-S-E-L. It's long. It's like a little. It looks longer than a squirrel, but it has a big tail also. And the weasel. One day we heard this bird screaming, and we saw the weasel had gone out to the stream and caught a baby duck, a wild duck, and it had it in its mouth. It was coming back, so my grandson Omar scared the weasel and he dropped the duck. He was trying to save the life of the duck. But when he looked at the duck was already, the baby duck. It was a little soft little pile of hair, right? Very, very sweet little dog. It was dead. So then he left it, and the weasel came back and took it. So when you start carefully observing nature, you see very, very mean things going on. Just like we bought 2 ducks recently. They're Indian ducks. We had them in a big box, big high walls, and a bobcat went in and ate them. You know, they're bobcats. Bobcats are big cats, not quite a lion or a tiger, but bigger than normal cats, much bigger than normal, much more ferocious, and they're in the wild. So, you know, we have bobcats, we have coyotes, we have weasels, we have possums. They're all living at the farm. And you don't see them during the day. They only come out at night, and they come out hunting. You know, and they hunt what? Rabbits. We have plenty of rabbits, wild rabbits. And we have moles. They're all so furry little animals that are underground. You know. And then we have the ducks, you know, the wild ducks, and the ducks that you buy, or chickens. We don't have any chickens, but we had bought 2 Indian ducks. They're ducks that don't fly. They're very cute, but they eat snails and basically slugs. So they're also violent. If you ever see the way they eat the slugs, I mean, unbelievable. Unbelievable. You know, they'll go up, you know, like that, and right away the slug disappears. It goes right down the throat. So you see, there's horror in nature, right? But you can't argue against it because they're programmed to be like that. Yeah. And the slugs, they eat our plants, right? They have no mercy eating the plants. No mercy at all, you know. So you see, there's the predator and the predators, you know. There's the prey and the predators. So one predator becomes the prey for another predator. That is nature. There's no mercy. But in the spiritual domain, there's mercy. Instead of being predators, one becomes preachers. There's a difference between a predator and a preacher. So in this 239, Krishna says, thus far, this is what you would call a turning point in the Bhagavad Gita. Right? He's explained the difference between body and soul, and it's a type of Sankhya Yoga. Sankhya Yoga means you quantify something. Just like, let's say you're a book distributor, right? So if you just go out and distribute some books, and when you come back, the temple manager say, how many books did you sell? He said, well, I'm not sure, you know, a bunch of them, but you can't quantify it. Right? So you can't tell whether that person is increasing their book distribution or decreasing. You can't tell anything because it's not quantified. But when you start quantifying something, then you know much more precisely what's happening. Right? So Sankhya Yoga is the way of quantifying things. Like, for example, 3 stages of chanting, right? There's the contaminated stage, there is the clearing stage, and there's the offenseless stage, or transcendental stage, right? So that's quantification. 6 stages of the body. There's birth, there is growth, there's staying, there's giving off byproducts, there's dwindling, and there's dying. So that's quantified, right? And then there's 3 types of miseries: adhyatmika, bodhika, daivika. Again, quantified. Miseries of this body, miseries caused by other bodies, miseries caused by natural cataclysmic events. And then there are 5 stages of consciousness. You know, there's anamoya, pranamoya, manamoya, vijnanamoya, and anandamoya. Again, quantified. Right? So Krishna is explaining Sankhya Yoga, but it's different than the Sankhya Yoga explained by the atheist Kapila. There were 2 Kapilas, the real Kapila Muni, the son of Devahuti, who's incarnation of Godhead, who explained Sankhya Yoga to his mom, Devahuti. And there's the atheist Kapila in modern times who taught a junk version of Sankhya, right, that misleads people. But Krishna's Sankhya, he's quantifying the differences between the body and the soul. So he does it in two ways, through negative definition and positive definition. Negative definition tells you what something is not, and a positive definition tells you what something is. So he uses both ways of definition to understand the eternal soul. But now he's going to, from verse 239, explain the practical work once one has become, let's say, once one has understood the difference between the body and the soul, and the difference between the individual soul and the super soul. Now he's going to explain the symptoms of such a person in terms of work. Right? He says, now listen as I explain this knowledge in terms of working without fruitive results. O son of Pritha, when you act in such knowledge, you can free yourself from the bondage of work. So in the impure stage of chanting Hare Krishna, we're chanting with material desires. In the clearing stage, we still have material desires, but we become aware that they are impediments on the path of devotional service, and we stop ourselves from continuing with those material desires. There's three stages before activity: thinking, willing, and feeling. So in the second stage, we stop ourselves in the process of thinking and feeling and willing from going to those three psychological steps to acting. And then we might stop ourselves on a third stage, willing. But then if we get better, we stop ourselves on the second stage, feeling. And if we get better, we stop ourselves on the first stage, which is thinking. And then the whole thing stops. Instead of thinking about sense gratification, we just think about Krishna. So in the clearing stage, it takes a long time usually to be able to stop before even thinking. Some people will stop after they think, but then they say, no, I shouldn't go any further. Some people stop and say, well, I'm going to think, I'm going to feel it also, and then maybe I'll stop. Or I want to think, feel, and will, then they will act. So they lost control at that point. So Sankhya means to describe something in detail. And the Sankhya refers to that philosophy which describes in detail the real nature of the soul and the difference between the soul and the body. Now, yoga is all about controlling the senses. So Arjuna's whole point was he didn't want to fight based on his desire for sense gratification. Right? So that's not a bona fide desire, to refuse to fight, and especially refuse Krishna's order. So what did Arjuna do? He forgets his prime duty, that is to satisfy Krishna, to please Krishna. And he thought that by killing the bodies of his relatives and kinsmen, he would, by not killing the bodies of his relatives and kinsmen, he would be happier than if he killed them and enjoyed the kingdom of conquering his cousins and brothers. So it's all about sense gratification. It's a maybe a little higher form of sense gratification, but it's still sense gratification. So Krishna detected it immediately, and he rejected it. So either he didn't want to fight because he didn't want to harm his family members, or he didn't want to fight to enjoy a kingdom by the spoils of war. Both purposes, not wanting to kill his family members or not wanting to enjoy the spoils of war, the kingdom, treasury, and so forth. Both were based on sense gratification. The first one is he didn't want to harm the bodies of his family members. Let's say there were no family members, then he would fight, right? But because there's family members, he doesn't want to fight. So that's a breach of duty based on his sense gratification. And the second thing, if you win, then you have a right to enjoy the spoils of the battle, which is kingdom, dominion over people. But he was trying to be a goody-goody guy. He said, well, I don't want to kill my family members, and I don't want to have any kingdom. So both reasons were based on sense gratification. See, if I want to enjoy a kingdom and dominate other people, that's a type of sense gratification. If I want to reject dominating a kingdom, that's another type of sense gratification, because I'll be glorified for it. I'll become famous. So both are not valid reasons for refusing Krishna's order. But he maintained two positions of sense gratification at the expense, and this is the main point, of violating the basic principles of Krishna consciousness. That's, in other words, if I want to, for reputation or for non-violence, refuse to follow Krishna's orders, well, I'm trying to follow this non-violence, or I'm trying to follow good reputation at the expense of my duty to God. So that is condemnable. So that's why our Krishna, in other words, at the expense of the wisdom of duty to Krishna. So Krishna begins to explain to Arjuna that by killing the body of his grandfather, Bhisma, he would not be killing the soul proper. There's a difference between the soul and the body. And he explained that all individuals, including the Lord himself, are eternal individuals. There were individuals in the past, there are individuals in the present, there'll be individuals in the future. And they'll continue to remain individuals in the future. So you're simply changing the bodily dress, just like I changed the shirt, you change the body, that's all. But the soul remains. Okay, so the analytical study of the soul and the body has been explained by Arjuna, Krishna to Arjuna. And now Krishna is trying to convince Arjuna, look, the only real course of work is to work for me without any material desire. Then I will free you of all karmic reactions, and I will protect you, and you will come back to me. So this is the turning point in the Bhagavad Gita from theoretical understanding to practical understanding. When due to practical understanding, one gets engaged in practical devotional service. Everything depends on the execution of one's duties in Krishna consciousness. And Arjuna's thing was, he found unvalid reasons to give up his duty in Krishna consciousness. So theoretical knowledge is not actually going to give a person liberation from birth and death. But theoretical knowledge put into practice of regulated, uninterrupted devotional service will save a person. That's why academic study is not really necessary. What's necessary is to understand basic principles and then follow them through practical action. Then one becomes protected by Krishna, and one attains the perfect life. One becomes free of the material illusion also. So Arjuna had accepted Krishna, Sisyasteham Sadimam Tvam Prapanam, as his guru already in earlier part of the Bhagavad Gita. But now Krishna is going to explain to him what that means in practical terms of devotional service, this acceptance of, yes, I accept you as my disciple. What does this mean in practical terms? Well, it means that one should be engaged all the time in Krishna's service. So, Bhakti Yoga means devotional service. And there's a difference between devotional service and other types of services. Devotional service is free of all material desires and free of any remuneration or salary. One is engaged only out of love of Krishna, and whatever happens is accepted as the mercy of the Lord. This is the real Bhakti Yoga. Okay. So coming back to the perfect life, we should never use our senses, meaning the senses for acquiring knowledge and the senses for work, and ultimately the mind, for sense gratification. The subtle functioning of the mind is thinking, feeling, and willing. And we can have either pure or impure thinking, feeling, and willing. If the mind is fixed on Krishna, his qualities, his pastimes, his form, his entourage, his paraphernalia, then all the activities, subtle and gross, are changed to Krishna consciousness. This is the PhD in psychology right here. You can heal any mental sickness with this methodology. People are mentally sick because they've forgotten Krishna, and they can't keep their mind focused on Krishna at all. The mind keeps running wild on them. They're full of material desires. I saw that yesterday. There's this one person I've met now 4 weeks in a row. He's a man from Morocco. So I speak a little Arabic, so every time I see him, I speak a little Arabic with him. He's happy to speak it also. He's been in this country maybe 20 years. So he has no control over his mind. Right? And it's destroying him. He's basically, every time I see him, he's deteriorating into, physically and mentally. Right? So he likes the prasadam, though, and he'll eat one plate. He's not in good health at all, but he'll eat one plate. His teeth are all finished, but he likes prasadam, and he does a little bit of volunteering. He always says, "I'll clean up after you guys." So he does a little bit of cleaning. See, he has a desire to do service. He doesn't do much service, but he has a desire to do it, so it's good. And he's coming back every week. Now, see, I've seen this before when I was in Berkeley, California. We were feeding people in People's Park, where they're much more degraded than what we're seeing here in Seattle. Much more degraded. I mean, they're really the lowest of the lowest. But some of those people became devotees because they took a liking to eating prasadam I was going there every day, and like this boy, they wanted to do some service. In the beginning, they're too crazy to do any service. Even if they want to, they're too crazy to do it, right? But by eating prasadam continually, some of these boys that we were feeding in People's Park in Berkeley became full-time devotees. Actually, not a lot of them, but a few. They actually became full-time, and they became close to normal. Close to normal. In other words, they listen, they follow, they chant their rounds. Sometimes they act a little crazy, but they became much, much better than what they were before. And I saw it with my own eyes. That's why this type of preaching, where you're dealing basically with the lowest of the lowest of the low. But even these people can become healed by Krishna consciousness. What is Krishna consciousness? At least on the basic level, anamoya, they're appreciating Krishna as food. Right? And yesterday I got a lot of high fives and handshakes from the drug addicts and the crazy people. And, I mean, it's like the fourth or fifth time we've gone out, right? So now they're beginning to see we're regular, and every time it's the same thing, you know, all good. And you know, before when we come by on Sankirtan, you know, they look at us, they make some faces, you know, I'm not interested like that. Now they're shaking my hand. You know, I mean, this is even more powerful than the Harinam. Now, this time, and what will happen next is when you actually go out on the Harinam on the street again, down the street, they might start dancing with us. That'll be the next step. You know, you see it's incremental improvement. So this is very, very interesting. When you look at it, it's just like a, what do you call this, the slow action cameras? What's the name of that? Slow motion. No. They take pictures over a long period of time. It's not
Pop motion.
What?
Pop motion would be like a video with like a picture,
Something like that. There's special cameras that, you know, they use it out in the wild to capture the behavior of animals, or they use it to capture the growth of a plant.
I've seen it.
What?
I don't remember the name.
Yeah, it has a special
You
name.
can see how the plant is growing.
Yeah.
They fast track.
Yeah, yeah. So, if you only go out once, you don't really see anything. But if you go out regularly and you see the same people and they're taking prasadam, you will see over a certain period of time they change their attitude and they become friendly. Right? They're still crazy, they're still taking drugs, but they become friendly. And then eventually, one guy told me yesterday, he said, "Hey man, I learned something from you." I said, "What was that?" So you told me I should bathe 3 times a day. I'm not at 3 yet, but I'm bathing twice a day. I feel better already. So he caught one thing. So yesterday I told him, okay, very good. I said, that's how to clean the body. Now I'm going to teach you how to clean the mind. He said, what? What do you mean how to clean the mind? I said, I'm going to explain it to you. So I explained about chanting. So let's see if he takes to it. So this is the way, you know, they can only take one thing at a time, yeah.
So you're talking about time lapse, right?
Yeah, time lapse, that's it. Timeless camera. Yeah. So, I mean, you have to, you know, that's why I say you have to go out regularly. Then you can time lapse it, you know. You know where that person was in the beginning, and incrementally they're improving. You know, just like that one guy said, "Hey, I learned one thing from you. You know, now I'm taking 2 baths a day." Yeah.
I've also seen few people, they are, because they are coming every week, so they are repeating what we are saying. Whenever we are giving prayer, we are saying Hare Krishna, they are happily saying Hare Krishna.
They're saying Hare Krishna, yeah.
Few people, not every, those are coming every week.
Yeah.
Because what we say, they are just repeating.
Yeah, that's why you have to be regular. So if you're regular, on time, every week, then you'll see the time-lapse phenomenon of these people incrementally, very slowly, but definitely making some change in their life, you know. Even if they capture only one thing that we say, just like this guy captured one thing, he should bathe more. He was not bathing once a day, right? Now he got some YMCA membership, and he goes there and it takes a bath, like it takes him an hour, you know, with hot water. He just stays under the water. And, you know, he said, I can do it because they don't care, you know, I can bathe an hour if I want. You know, it's YMCA's water, so it doesn't matter, you know. Yeah. Okay, so when we engage in the 9 types of devotional service, then we begin to fix the mind on Krishna. You know, so that leads to major changes over time. And no one can stop the activities of minds and the senses, the mind and the senses, but one can purify the activities by changing, what Prabhupada says, the account. And this change of account is recommended, he says, in Bhagavad Gita 239. So, what is the change of account? So what do the Mayavadis do and the yogis do? They try and control the mind and the senses by denying them. You know, just like you tell a kid, you know, you can't eat ice cream for the next 10 years. Now, did the desire to eat ice cream diminish in their mind? No. The desire is still there, but they're being forced not to eat ice cream. Right? So that's like an artificial attempt. It's not as powerful as, okay, you can't have karmi ice cream, but we can teach you to make ice cream, you can offer it to Krishna, and then you can respect the Mahaprasadam. So now, one is not artificially denying something, but they've purified it. They've purified the activity. See? So that's what's being recommended by Lord Chaitanya. And the Mayavadis, they just say reject. You know, neti. So it's artificial, and therefore they eventually do fall down, even if they attain Brahman realization. So this change of account, basically change of consciousness, right? Change of the way you do things, is recommended in Bhagavad Gita in 239. So 239 says that when you act in such knowledge, that is working without material desires, you become free from the bondage of works.
Yashomati Nandana Brajabara Nagara Gokula Ranjana Kana Yashomati Nandana Brajabara Nagara Gokula Ranjana Kana Gopi Paranadhana Madana Manohara Gopi Paranadhana Madana Manohara Kaliya Dhamana Vidhana Amala Harinamamiya Vilasa Amala Harinamamiya Vilasa Vipina Purandara Navina Nagara Bora Vamsi Badana Suvasa Rajana Palana Surakula Nashanam Brajajana Palana Surakula Nashana Nanda Godhana Rakhovala Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara Sundara Nanda Gopala Yamuna Tat Chara Gopi Basana Hara Yamuna Tat Chara Gopi Basana Hara Rasa Rasika Kripa Moya Sri Radha Vallabha Vrindavana Nattabara Sri Radha Vallabha Vrindavana Nattabara Bhakti Vinodasaya Yashomati Nandana Brajabara Nagara Gokula Ranjana Kana Gopi Paranadana Madana Manohara Kaliya Dhamana Vidhana Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jayo Radha Nila Madhav Radhe Jayo Jagannatha Jayo Baladeva Jayo Subhadra Jayo Sudarshan Jayo Sitaram Jayo Lakshman Hanuman Jayo Dakshina Simha Jayo Lakshmi Narasimha Jayo Bhakta Prahlad Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Jayo Prabhupada Jayo Gurudev Jayo Gurudev
So in the offensive stage of chanting, we desire all kinds of material happiness or freedom from material distress. But in the second stage of chanting, the clearing stage, we become cleared of all material contaminations gradually. But that is because we understand the 3 psychological steps before every act: thinking, feeling, and willing. So as we become conscious that, listen, what I'm thinking about doing is actually sinful, and I know I shouldn't do it, but I'm attracted to do it. But if I do it, then I'll just prolong my life in the material world. And if my goal is to become a sincere servant of Krishna, why would I do anything to prolong my birth and death in the material world? So you begin thinking like that. And eventually, if you pray at those moments, and Krishna gives you the strength to say no. So you don't advance to willing and then acting. It takes time, but it is the essential, let's say, cultural education that you need to be able to do it. First of all, you understand the dynamics of how one goes to action. And you have to go through those 3 steps: thinking, feeling, and willing. So if you can stop in the midst of that progression, then you will not act on material desires. And desires are there. Acting on it is the problem. You know. So therefore, when one is situated in the transcendental stage, where one is no longer attracted, not even attracted to sense gratification, one attains the perfect life, stage of perfect life, of loving Krishna. So love is the strongest force in the spiritual, in material and spiritual world. And when the object of love is Krishna, then you can conquer over all bad habits and all material desires. So Lord Chaitanya recommended this process of Krishna consciousness as the highest stage of perfection for the human being. Savai pumsa paro dharmo yato bhakti rahoksache haitaki pratihata yatma suprasiddhati. That of all types of spiritual endeavors, achieving pure love of God is the highest. And it should be free of all material desires and uninterrupted service. The yoga process is meant for controlling the senses and the mind. The mind is the central controlling factor of all the senses, and therefore one has to practice first controlling the mind by engaging the mind in Krishna conscious activities. Just like we were just talking now about building the first Nrsimha temple in Seattle, buying a mountain in the hills, Cascade Hills, and building a small temple out of stone, carved stone, and bringing in the workers from India and so forth. So all these things are possible. First you think about it, then you feel how it would be very nice to offer to worship Lord Nrsimhadev, and then you will. I must do this. I must do this to please Prabhupada, please Krishna, Nrsimhadev, please the devotees. And then you organize to do it. So when the mind is fixed on Krishna, then all the activities, subtle and gross, are changed favorably. So the Bhagavad Gita process for purifying the consciousness. Consciousness is made up of mind, intelligence, and false ego. The way of purifying those 3 things is talking about Krishna, cleansing the temple of Krishna, walking to the temple of Krishna, see the beautiful transcendental form of the Lord, and offering tasty foodstuffs to the Lord, smell the flowers and tulsi leaves offered to the Lord, associate with the Lord's devotees, engage in the activities of Krishna consciousness to please the Lord, associate and to become angry at those who are envious of the Lord and devotees. These are different activities to purify one's consciousness. And this is called, as Prabhupada said, it's the change of account, or the change of the purpose for which we're living. If we decide, I'm not living for sense gratification, I'm living in order to please Krishna, then we've changed the account, or changed our consciousness. So, we do not follow the process of the Mayavadis, which is to deny. We purify. Purify the desire. We don't deny the desires, we purify the desires. We don't want to stop something by force. We want to dovetail things into Krishna's service. So we have 8 formulas for practicing yoga. 1 is following regulative principles. 2, following rules. 3, practicing different sitting postures. 4, breathing exercises, and thus withdraw the senses from sense objects. So that's the yoga process. And it's meant for persons who are too attached to the body and the bodily concept of life. But a Krishna conscious person doesn't try to forcibly stop the senses from acting on behalf of Krishna. For example, you can't stop a child from playing and playful activities and force him to be inactive. And however, you can engage the child in fun activities that are at the same time educational, challenging, and interesting, fun, and uplifting. So that requires culture, that requires some intelligence. So in the same way, you can't stop the child by engaging in, by forcing the child not to play, but you can get the child to play in activities that are uplifting and Krishna conscious. In the same way, the forceful restraint of the senses will not ultimately work by following the different 8 processes of yoga. However, that's only recommended for an inferior class of men. But superior class of men or people who are engaged in better activities of Krishna consciousness or in fun activities to serve the Lord, devotional service, they naturally give up the inferior attachments and become attached to Krishna. So by engaging the mind and the senses in Krishna conscious activities, this is what Lord Chaitanya was teaching. This is the process of Krishna consciousness. Okay, so there are different stages of consciousness: Anamoya, Pranamoya, Manamoya, Vijnanamoya, and Anandamoya. So we begin by appreciating prasadam. We appreciate the activities of the devotees and the association of devotees. We begin to hear about Krishna from Bhagavad Gita, and we begin to meditate on what we've heard, and then we put it into practice, and then eventually we become ecstatic in Krishna consciousness. Right? Putting what we've heard about Krishna into practice is called Vijnanamoya. And then we become ecstatic at the end. So those are the different stages of consciousness. And we explain the difference between the Mayavadi process of controlling the senses and the devotee process. We explained also the value of practical engagement in devotional service and ultimately attaining the perfect life. So we'll stop right there. Are there any questions? Yes, Sidhu, what was your question? Oh, I thought you were smiling. You had a question. He was smiling because it was over. The class is over. Yes. Well, how do you tell them? Well, first of all, feeling guilty about it is already a good thing. That means they realize there's something wrong with eating a cookie with egg in it. Okay. Okay, well, how often are they offered cookies at school? Very rarely. Okay. So if you learn yourself how to make really good, tasty cookies, and then teach your kids to make them, and then have them take every day a few cookies to school and share them with their friends, and the fact that they make it themselves will give them a special incentive to share it with others. And if you make cookies that are better than the nonsense cookies on the outside made with eggs, then your kids develop a higher taste. So there's two reasons now why they should not eat the other cookie. First of all, the cookies they make is better. And secondly, they make it without eggs and they offer it to Krishna. So it's transcendental. Okay. Well, the idea is that she develops a higher taste, more discrimination through higher taste. Well, you can do that, but if you can have her regularly making cookies, let's say once a week, and sharing it with her friends, and making sure they're really good, eventually she will not want to take any other cookie, because she'll be proud that my cookie is better anyway, so why should I take something less? And plus, there's no guilt involved. And plus, she's sharing it with her friends, so you have any more cookies? You know, they're excited about her cookies. See? And then she can do some cookie charity programs, you know, and other creative things, and eventually she might even want to start a children's cookie company. Well, then you find out what cookie that was, and you make it without eggs, but just as good. You have to be creative. You have to be creative, and you are, but you have to be more proactively creative. Yeah. Well, you keep trying. I mean, you want to get the greatest cookie in the world. So don't give up until she gets such a higher taste that she wouldn't even be attracted by the other cookies. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. We'll stop there and get ready for our next program.